The suspect, accused of opening fire in a Pittsburgh synagogue over the weekend, leaving 11 people dead, is due to appear in court later today to be formally charged as the community comes together to begin the healing process. The Department of Justice has announced it will charge the suspected gunman with 29 federal counts, including 11 counts of obstructing the exercise of religious beliefs resulting in death. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has said the charges could lead to the death penalty. The gunman had a history of online postings focusing on conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic hate speech. In the hours before he allegedly carried out the shooting, he claimed that the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, a humanitarian nonprofit group that assists refugees, brought immigrants to the United States to carry out violence. He also frequently posted about the migrant caravan, a major talking point among right-wing commentators and President Trump and his stupid followers running for Republican seats, who tend to just repeat it because they think it'll work, even though they don't care about the results.
They also know it's a lie. They
know it's a lie.
They know they're lying. People on Fox News, people on Fox News that talk about the caravan as if this is a big election issue. No, it's a lie. No, they're 1,000 miles away. Know that the last caravan that they whipped up frenzy about actually only brought 14 arrests by the end of the caravan. They know it's a lie.
Yeah.
And they are spreading hatred across America. And at the end of the day, Mika, again, inspiring people like this Pittsburgh mass murderer.
And the suspect, the gunman, did appear to be disappointed with President Trump for not sharing his anti-Semitic and extremist views days after the president declared himself a nationalist. At a campaign event, the gunman claimed that Trump was a globalist and not a nationalist, not nationalist enough. And where have we heard that support of nationalism before? Last week, just before President Trump was putting bomb in quotes, David Duke tweeted, "When Jewish center threats occurred last year, I said they may be false flags from Israel to demonize those who morally oppose tribalist Zionist global power. I and Trump were right. Now bomb threats on Trump haters. Are we right again? Divert focus from invasion and demo violence?" After President Trump declared himself a nationalist at a rally, Duke tweeted gleefully, quote, "Trump embraces nationalism in a massive, jam-packed, 99.9% white venue in Houston, exclamation point. Zio journalists, which probably shorthand for Zionist, asked him if this is white nationalism. Of course, fundamentally, it is, as there is no ethnic or racial group in America more nationalist than white Americans. So what's the problem? Other white nationalists feel comforted by Trump's words after the president said there were fine people on both sides at the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Organizer Richard Spencer told the journalist, "Really proud of him," and that Trump made a statement that is fair and down to earth. The president followed that up a few months later by retweeting a far-right group's inflammatory anti-Muslim videos, drawing a rebuke from the British Prime Minister and forcing a rare apology.
Eddie, no dog whistles here with Donald Trump. These are foghorns. He's blaring it out. He wants the white nationalists to know that he's on their side, and every time he has an opportunity to criticize, he always backs away. He can, like I said, his staff members will write him pretty words to read because they'll be freaking out because it's obvious that he is, of course, uniting with white nationalists in his words and his mindset. And then he'll always pull back. And he'll always go back and he'll say, you know what, they're not so bad. They're bad people on both sides. This is clear what Donald Trump's been trying to do, and this past weekend, we saw the result of it.
Right, so we saw 11 dead, murdered in a place of worship. We saw 2 black people murdered in Kentucky. More carnage could have happened if he would have gotten into the church. We saw pipe bombs mailed. I had to call my wife to tell her, if you don't recognize the return address, don't open it, because we get threats all the time. They've been investigated. I get calls all the time. There's something happening in the country that is a reflection of what's, in some ways, Bill just mentioned, has always been there, Joe. Donald Trump has provided an ideological context to radicalize certain kinds of understandings of views about whiteness, about white people. There's the radical fringe white nationalist, and then there are those who are complicit with them in their silence. Something is happening that goes beyond institutions, that goes beyond politics. There's something happening to the national soul, something corrosive at the heart. And it seems to me that, come Tuesday, we got to vote. It's true. But we have to engage in a kind of deep national introspection. You asked at the top of the hour, Joe, is this the kind of America we want to live in? People have been asking that question for a long time, and we have to answer it now. I mean, we have to answer it fundamentally now. Otherwise,
everybody has a choice to.
Yeah, otherwise, I think, and I've said this on the show before, we're standing at the twilight of a civilization. Selfishness, greed, mean-spiritedness, and just plain old evil is overrunning our democracy. We have to do something desperately right now.
Well, and that, Mika, can be done, again, in a week. People can vote, regardless of what side they're on, if they want to send a message.
Yeah.
They have a chance. All these people that have been saying that Donald Trump is somehow too big for the Constitution and he's subverting constitutional norms. No, the most powerful constitutional norm is handed to the American people every 2 years, and that's next Tuesday. The question is, are they going to do it? Because if you don't vote next Tuesday, just keep your mouth shut for the next 2 years about the Constitution being insufficient, Madisonian democracy being insufficient to check this guy. Because, Mika, the check is in the hands of not you and me, but in the hands of over 300 million people who can go out and vote next Tuesday.
So there's one other check, Matt Miller, and that would be Robert Mueller. And I wonder, as we look at the Russia probe and the investigation by Mueller, is that a parallel track? Or are there parts of what we've seen over the past few days that Mueller might be looking at, depending on the direction that he's taking?
I don't think so. I think what he's doing is just looking at his very narrow charge, which is what happened, in the 2016 election and in the follow-up. If there was anyone that tried to shut down the investigation, I do think there's a role for the federal government, for the Justice Department, in combating what we saw in the last week. I'm glad Eddie brought up what happened in Kentucky because, we saw 3 very serious incidents. In none of the cases were the individuals, the killers or attempted killers, connected to each other by anything other than hate. It's clear now there is a serious right-wing domestic terrorism problem in this country, and it's something the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security have to address. But there is a problem for them. They can't address it when the President of the United States, the head of the federal government, is the chief propagandist for these right-wing movements. When the President is the one who's sending these messages, not only sowing division, not only sowing hatred, not only echoing their message, but when he's condoning and endorsing violence. I keep thinking when I watch what happened the last week of how Islamic terrorism has moved over the years and how we no longer worry about someone getting on a plane and coming from a foreign country. We worry about it, but much less than we do someone who's been radicalized online, someone who grew up in America and is radicalized by what they see, and how we've tried to combat that by combating the ideology, and how we can't do that. We can't combat this ideology when the ideology is being shared by the President of the United States. It is a serious problem for the country, and I don't see how we get out of it as long as Donald Trump is the president.
Bill Kristol, give us your final thoughts. We're a week away from an election that could shape the direction we go for some time.
Voting is important, but I think, look, Matt's right that Donald Trump, as long as he's president, is a problem, but we can't combat it. I think we have to combat it in our local communities in Northern Virginia, where I live. The Christians, Muslims came together. They showed up at the synagogues yesterday where there were Sunday school was happening to show support and solidarity. So local officials, state officials, private sector, people in the private sector. If people, as I say, who are on the board of Fox News can do something, I think people can do a lot more than they're doing to address what Eddie correctly says, I think is a real, genuine national problem.
All right, Bill Kristol, thank you so much. And still ahead on Morning Joe, Ivanka Trump looks to credit the White House for lowering the flag to half-staff.
Good Lord.
As if that should be in question. Like, if your biggest accomplishment of the day is to get the White House to do something it should have done and does do for history at times of you really need to rethink your role here.
Instead of canceling rallies, instead of having
maybe
your
don't go
father,
to Kentucky and hopscotch around the country Instagramming pretty pictures of yourself.
Maybe your father doesn't make jokes about a bad hair day, saying that's why he's going to cancel
I'm
a
thinking
rally.
this is bad for your brand. I'm thinking this is bad for your reputation.
All right.
I'm thinking that history is going to look at your brand terribly. So if you, I know you don't care about the country, and I know you don't care about us and our lives. I know you don't, because I reached out to you and you didn't write back.
All right.
But if you care about your brand, bad for your brand.
Plus, we've got the update on the critical midterm races that are now just 8 days away. That countdown may have a direct parallel with how long Jeff Sessions has his job. New signs that the Attorney General may be soon out the door. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.